Hey everyone, Josh here, and it's time. The most glorious and hallowed day the gym ever created. A day so holy that few people show up for it. A day filled with so much strain that you legitimately cannot walk for 2, sometimes 3 days afterwards. That's it. You guessed it. It is leg day. Legs are the foundation of any workout plan. Your legs are composed of some of the largest muscle groups, so you're going to be burning the most calories by far on a leg day. As usual, we're going to discuss the anatomy of our legs to help you build an understanding of how we should train them. In addition, I'm going to teach you how to squat properly, as well as look at some of the most common do's and don'ts that I see for our legs at the gym. So let's get started. I tell you what, it took quite a few years of lifting before I started to enjoy leg day, and a lot of that had to do with not really understanding how to train legs. Thankfully, you're not going to have to waste years training wrong because I'll teach you everything you need to know. So let's dive into our leg anatomy. On a brief side note, there is a lot of fun words to say with our legs. So starting with the quads, we have 4 muscles here, hence quad. And we'll run through it pretty quickly because it can get a bit extensive. So all 4 quad muscles have relatively the same function. 3 of the 4 start in your femur and attach down below your patella into your tibial tuberosity, which is fun to say. And they're responsible for knee extension. And those 3 are your vastus medialis, lateralis, and your intermedius. Now, the odd man out is in your quad is the rectus femoris, which attaches a little bit above your hip, and this allows it to assist with some hip flexion. Well, a little bit, but let me show you what that looks like. So rolling up my pant leg here, flex so you can see it. So this guy right here, the almost like teardrop shaped looking one, this is your vastus medialis, or the medial head of your quad. The outside is your vastus lateralis, or the lateral head. And you would think this little triangle looking one right here is the intermedius, but that's actually where you're wrong, because the intermedius is underneath all of this stuff and you can't actually see it. This guy right here is the rectus femoris. So moving along, I'm just gonna reference a picture because I doubt you guys wanna awkwardly stare at my butt while I talk about the glutes and hamstrings. So on the back side of our legs, we have what are called the hamstrings. And there are 3 main muscles here, your biceps femoris, which has an inner and outer head, the semitendinosus and semimembranosus. All of these originate from your ischial tuberosity, which basically is right in here, and then they insert down into the tibia. These muscles are mainly responsible for knee flexion and hip extension. Let me show you what that means. So previously we talked about how our quads are responsible for knee extension. So we have knee extension for our quads, knee flexion from our hamstrings. And then with our hips, we have hip flexion down here and extension up here. Last, we have the glutes. Now there are 3 major parts to your glutes, the maximus, medius, and minimus. And they all basically start on the posterior side of your ilium, which is kind of the wing-looking hip bone that you have. And your maximus is the chunky part on the outside that we all know and see. And its main function is hip extension. So again, the main function of your glute max is hip extension. Now the other 2, the medius and minimus, which you rarely hear about, are responsible for femur rotation and abduction. So meaning they're responsible for taking your leg away from your body. Now, contrary to popular belief, especially for guys, working your glutes is so important. It will save you so much hip, knee, and back pain down the road because your glutes are the shock absorber of your body. So if you don't have active glutes, then all the strain from standing, walking, running, and exercises, it's not going to be absorbed by your glutes. It's going to go straight to your lower back. So always work in exercise to strengthen your glute minimus and medius. Now that we've gone through our anatomy, let's go over and I'll teach you how to squat. When it comes to squatting, one of the first and foremost important things to figure out is your starting foot position. Now, if you don't have a background in exercise, this might be kind of hard to just figure out on your own. So let me show you a good way to find a starting position. Now it requires you to free hang from a bar, so I'm just gonna use this pull-up bar here, and make sure your feet have a good 4 to 6 inches from the ground. Let me hop up here. And basically what you wanna do is just relax, let your feet hang and get in line with your hips. Now, once you've hung here for 5, maybe 6 seconds, then you can slowly drop down and your feet are gonna naturally be in line with your hips. From this point, you're gonna externally rotate your toes, line your heels up with it, and then rotate your toes out about 15 degrees to start with, based on how open your hips are. And this is gonna be a great place to start when you're trying to squat. Now, as you get more advanced, you'll be able to adjust it as you figure out what feels more comfortable. But again, this is a great way to figure out where you can find a good squatting starting position. So moving along, we have 4 factors that come into play when determining how you should squat. The first and probably most important is your ankle's ability or your ankle flexibility. Now there's dorsiflexion, which is the one we're gonna focus on, which is bringing basically your foot towards your shin. And then you have plantar flexion, which is pointing your toe out. And the reason this is important is as you squat down, your ankle mobility is gonna dictate how far forward your knees can go. So someone like me who has great dorsiflexion, I can actually lean, a good 6 to 7 inches past where my toes are. Yeah, about 6 inches, I'd say, past where my toes are, while my heels still stay flat on the ground, and I can still lift my toes off the ground so the weight is still in my heels. Now, someone who doesn't have as good dorsiflexion, if they're squatting down, coming like this might be as far forward as their dorsiflexion, their ankles will let them bend. So they're going to be squatting right here, and there's nothing wrong with that because that's the way their body's mechanically designed. So if you have a mentality of, I need to get to the floor, that's not right because your body is not designed that way. The other one to keep in mind is your femur and tibia length play a key role in determining how you squat as well. So say for example, you have a short tibia. As you're squatting down, if your tibia, say instead of mine is up here, say your tibia starts down here. Well, the distance from here to here is gonna drastically inhibit how much you can lean forward because you're gonna have to have extensive dorsiflexion in your ankles to be able to get all the way down. So if you have a really short tibia, again, this might be the extent of your squat because you're genetically made that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. So don't try and force yourself to go all the way to the floor. A good way to start squatting is just a chair, a stool, something that you can have to mentally help you squat down and say, okay, parallel. That's all I'm looking for. Try and go back up. Coming down, parallel, come back up. Now, when it comes to the weight load, based on how you squat, squats are gonna feel differently to people who are designed differently. For example, someone like me who can almost fold in and go all the way down, I'm gonna feel less tension on my quads and more tension on my lower back. Now that doesn't mean I'm squatting wrong, that just means that's how my body's designed. For someone who can only go this deep for their squat, they're gonna feel it all in their quads. And again, it's not that either of us are squatting incorrectly, we're just squatting the way our body's designed. So take some time, figure out how your body's designed, and incorporate squats the way your body was built. Now that we've gone through our anatomy of our legs, and we have a good foundation of how to try and get our squat to work, let's look at some of the most common do's and don'ts that I see at the gym when it comes to leg day. Now, the first, of course, has to do with squats, and it has to do with our ankles. So the problem I see at the gym is you get your squat, you're ready to go, people get in their position. As they come down, they're so concerned with getting lower in the squat that they actually internally and cave in with their ankles. So as you come down, you'll see them get to about here, and then they'll start to lean forward, their knees come in, their ankles come in, because they want to get lower in the squat. So let me show you again what that looks like. So people squat, they come down, they start to internally rotate with their ankles, the backside of their heels are coming off the floor. I mean, it's just a no-no, and that's waiting for an injury because all the strain's on a mobility joint. It's on your ankles, and that's not where it should be. So a proper squat, when you're coming down, you want to make sure I'll do kind of a parallel squat here. As you're coming down, you want to make sure that you have good ankle stability, so the weight's nice and even as it goes throughout your body. So another good squat here, coming down and squat up. And that's the first do and don't of the gym. Okay, so the second one that I see all the time at the gym is people leaning too far forward because, again, they've so focused on getting as deep in their squat as possible that they're compromising the safety of their body. So what I'll see is people coming down, they'll get to where their body naturally is done squatting, and then they'll lean forward and put all the weight in their toes, their heels will come up, and that's just terrible. So what you want to do is make sure that you can wiggle your toes pretty much the entire duration of the squat. So I'll show you, I'll lift my toes up, coming down, get to the base of my squat. I can still wiggle my toes, come back up. So again, what we want to avoid is going down on our squat, leaning real far forward, heels come up. And we'll show you a good one again, wiggling toes, coming down to the base of our squat, still wiggling our toes, and come back up. And that's the second do and don't of leg day at the gym. So the next do and don't we have at the gym, as you can see, is in regards to leg extensions. Now, leg extensions are phenomenal quad isolation exercise. However, there's more injury or risk for injury than reward. So unless you're specifically trying to be a bodybuilder, just do not do leg extensions. And the reason for that is when you come up, again, you think, oh, our quads are designed for extension, so naturally this is a great exercise for our quads. And again, they are, it's phenomenal. However, you don't have any stabilization from your glutes or hamstrings on your knee. So all the shearing force is just right here, and it is asking for injury. One of the great alternatives that I really enjoy is twofold. You can add a resistance band for modification, but what we want to do is we'll start off with 90 degrees there in our foot, and then we're going to come up and extend that front leg because we're still getting great extension on our quads without the risk of having injury because our hamstrings and our glutes are helping stabilize that knee. A modifier you can add to even further assist with stabilization is putting a resistance band behind your knee, and this is going to help with the quad even more. We'll start here, come up, extend, flex. Oh yeah, I can feel the burn on that one already. And this is great because it doesn't just isolate your quads, but it also, again, helps work your glutes, your hamstrings, your stabilizers. It's a phenomenal alternative. And that is the third do and don't that we have at the gym. All right, so our last do and don't of leg day at the gym has a little bit less to do with legs and more to do with the mindset that is associated with squats and deadlifts, and that is the use of a power belt. Now, this isn't exactly a power belt, but it'll help illustrate my point. Now, your body has an internal power belt called your transverse abdominis, and the entire function of it is when you flex, when you contract, it decompresses your spine and supports your body, and I'll show you. So lift my shirt up, and when you flex, everything gets contracted, it gets supported, and that's how your body's supposed to function. Well, when you put on a belt, like I said, I'll show you here, we'll tighten, you get it all nice and tight. Well, when you're using a belt to help support you during a squat, the belt is doing the contracting, and in order to use the belt, you have to push out against it. So you have to extend your stomach out instead of compressing it in. So what you're doing is teaching your body the opposite of what it should do when it's under strain and stress. And this is setting yourself up for failure when you're in your everyday life. You know, when you go to lift up a box off the ground, you don't have the support of the belt to stabilize your spine. So what's gonna happen is your body is instinctively going to go back to what you've trained it to do, which is extend your stomach and not support your spine. And this is a great way to get a back injury. So the don't is stop wearing this at the gym. And the do is learn how to engage your core so that you have a longer and happier life. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. If you found the video helpful or have any questions, please leave a comment below. I hope you have a joy-filled, blessed week, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Does this look okay?
Oh, there we go. Make sure you're recording. I'm recording. Good.